Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is the third dose of your daily vitamins. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. All right. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur. Make sure you follow the Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur fan page, and you can follow me on Twitter at DGoddess27. All right. Hello, CH464, Brianna, Emperor Rex, Silent D, Jeremy Has Awakened, Peak Brautique, Millie, Nathalie, Beryl. I hope I said that right. Jeremy, Tony Curtis, Byron, Ray Williams is Black. All right. Hello, Dervis is in the house. Melanated Brown, Cole Conish, Lakeisha, Dan, I see you, FBA. Okay, let's get into it, Lakeisha. The conscious room is Black. The real China doll is in the house. Shout out to you, Louise, and Black Women Stand Up. Shout out to you, beloved. Okay, so let's get into it, people. Let's get into it. CH464 said, let's get it, fam. All right. All right, Beatzilla. Shout out to my mod, Beatzilla. Y'all make sure you all subscribe to Beatzilla's channel. Beatzilla PDX Official, all right? He's out there dropping gems, all right? Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to his channel. Okay, so let's get into it. So first things first. Now, I have discussed, a couple of years ago, I discussed some things that were going on with Disney, but I also talked about Tony Curtis said, a real download, no charge. Well, you got that right. You got that right, beloved. It is, I do actually get downloads. Yes. And I don't charge for them. I'm sure the ancestors wouldn't want me to. And also the minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, says that some knowledge we're supposed to give freely. So that's why when I teach you all about your spiritual things, your spiritual vitamins, I give that to you for free because that's what you're supposed to do. When you're trying to help your people rise to higher levels of consciousness, there's never a need to charge for those things. Although some scholarly information that you may give out, you may want to charge for that. But spiritual vitamins, I just give those out for free, but that's just me. So let's get into it. Shout out to everyone in the chat and everyone tuned into the Queen. All right, Pearlie said, thank you, Queen. You're welcome, beloved. Okay. Vince I Am says he checks out Beatzilla's lives and they are awesome. Yes, they are, beloved, because my moderators are awesome, right? So this is what I want to say. So previously, maybe a couple of years ago, I did a story about Disney and some of the unsavory things that was going on there. And at the same time, I talked about how some of the stories from Disney had been used for other purposes. One of the stories that I mentioned was Alice in Wonderland. And I mentioned how the CIA actually used that story when they were doing mind control on people and also for interrogations. It's called the Alice in Wonderland technique. Now, I'll talk about that in a little bit. But before I talk about that, let's talk about how Alice in Wonderland, the story itself, whether you saw the cartoon movie from 1951, a more recent version, or whether you read the book by Lewis Carroll, or, any of those things, if you paid attention, you may have picked up some subliminals, you may have picked up some symbolisms, or just things that you noticed you could incorporate into daily living and things that actually occur. And you may have found some similarities in it that you saw also in The Matrix. Now, if you notice in the movie The Matrix, they made numerous references to Alice in Wonderland. And did anyone notice? Now, I'm going to ask this question before I start giving my commentary. Could someone or anyone in the chat, that's right, Oyela says Alice in Wonderland is MK Ultra. Absolutely. Now, if anyone in the chat can tell me of a similarity between Alice in Wonderland and The Matrix, put it in the chat. If anyone can name any type of similarity that was in The Matrix, right, with the story of the movie The Matrix and the movie Alice in Wonderland. If you know any similarities in the characters, the storyline, or any of those things, put it in the chat. All right? Terry Hint says, I liked how you explained and broke down Pinocchio. Well, thank you, beloved. That's another thing. For those of you who haven't been following my spiritual channel, you really need to. I did break down the story Pinocchio, which is actually about your pineal gland. Okay? So Beatzilla's link is in the chats if you want to subscribe to his channel, and please do. Hold on, let me see. Pride at Bentley said the rabbit hole. A lot of people are saying the rabbit hole. The rabbit hole on the back of old girl, says Byron. Millie says mind control in the pandemic. Millie, you all are too much. Okay, now they do mention the rabbit hole in the Matrix, right? But I'm going to tell you all the similarities. Because see, unless you're watching these movies with your third eye, which I call it the first eye, you'll miss these things. So here's the thing. In FBA says off with his head. Yes, they said some of the same things, but there were some specific similarities. So let me give you a few. So in the movie The Matrix, Neo, right, which the name Neo, N-E-O, that's an anagram for one. And I told you all that when I broke down The Matrix on the spiritual channel as well. If you missed that, I did it months ago. Please go back and watch that. But here's the thing. Now, Neo from The Matrix and Alice from Alice in Wonderland, they both were having trouble discovering their true selves. They didn't know really who they were or what their purpose was. And if you remember, they both were in a fantasy world, right? They wanted to be in a fantasy world. They didn't want to be in reality at first. But then, if you remember in the movie Alice in Wonderland, in the beginning, there's that part where she's sitting up in the tree and the woman is sitting on the ground trying to read to her from a book. And Alice is not paying attention. She's being silly. She's playing and laughing. And the lady gets upset because she's like, Alice, you're not listening. And Alice says, it's very hard to listen to a book that has no pictures, right? Now, I want you all to think about that. It's very hard to pay attention and listen to a book being read that has no pictures. Well, that's how a lot of people are. A lot of people are visual creatures, right? They have to see things. They don't want to read. They don't want to pick up a book. They'd rather just listen to it on the audio so they don't have to read it themselves. They'd rather you show them some pictures of things so they don't have to read it or do the real research. And Alice also said in that same scene, she said, well, in the world that I would want, she said, in my world, because the lady told her that's nonsense, Alice. And Alice says, well, in my world, everything would be nonsense. That's what she said. She said in her world, everything would be nonsense, right? Because Alice didn't want to deal in reality. That's how a lot of people are, especially Black people. A lot of Black people don't want to deal in reality. That's why when you have these altercations between some Black people and the police, or some Black people and racist people who approach them, harass them, attack them, or whatever, and then you have these numerous videos that I've reported on where you have Black people saying things like, I just can't believe this happened to me. I never thought this would happen to me. And I have told you numerous of times when I've heard them say these things, why wouldn't they think it would happen to them? They're Black. Don't they know and understand what racism is? But you see, the reason they wouldn't think those things would happen to them, although they're Black, is because they live in a false sense of reality. They live in a wonderland. They don't live in reality, because in reality, you would definitely know that these things absolutely can happen to you. But when you live in a world where things, just don't make sense, right? Because it makes sense that it would happen to them because they're Black. And it happens to numerous other Black people. What makes them exempt? So it's nonsensical when they say these things. And that's like Alice. Alice was being nonsensical. She didn't want to listen to what the woman was reading to her. She didn't want to hear any facts and proof and truth. She didn't want to hear something that was there to educate her. She only wanted to be silly and play games. How many times have I told you that Black people are still on the playground, many of our people, while other people are on the battlefield? Because Black people don't seem to take things seriously. Remember a few months ago when they had that silly crate challenge and Black people were falling off and hurting themselves and all of that, ended up in the hospital. And I said, we're up here in a fight for our lives in a whole full-on global pandemic with all sorts of things going on, looming famine, fighting for our rights and things like that. Black people getting killed by police, all sorts of things. And you mean to tell me Black people have time to do something so foolish and participate in a crate challenge? But the reason you have Black people doing those type of things when there's serious issues going on around us, when our people are still being killed unarmed by police, when our people are still being harassed by Karens and Kens on a daily, why you still have some Black people engaging in these foolish challenges, which will yield them no substantial rewards or benefits, right? The reason you have these things occurring is because many Black people do not want to face reality. They'd rather laugh and make jokes. They'd rather play games. And they don't want to think about the seriousness of the things that are going on around us. So some Black people, I liken them to Alice as she was lost in Wonderland. Another thing that's similar to Alice in Wonderland and the Matrix is they were both in a dream state. If you remember, Alice dreamt of Wonderland. That was a dream, right? She was dreaming. But Neo in the Matrix, he awakened from his dream state. And then they both also, Neo was offered the red pill or the blue pill. And if you remember when Morpheus told him, you can take the blue pill and go back to sleep and wake up and think whatever you like. But if you take the red pill, then I'll show you the truth and I'll take you down the rabbit hole and you can see just how deep it goes. That was something that they borrowed from Alice in Wonderland. That's why people till this day say, let's see how far the rabbit hole goes, because Alice went down the rabbit hole. So a lot of things that we say, in pop culture now came from the story of Alice in Wonderland. So they were both in a dream state, right? Now, another thing is in the movie Alice in Wonderland, if you remember when Alice went to the tea party with the Mad Hatter and the March Hare and the Dormouse. Now, you may remember when she went there, they were talking and they were singing a song, Merry Unhappy Birthday or Merry Unbirthday to you. And Alice said, oh, it's your birthday? And they said, no, it's not our birthday. We said Merry Unbirthday. And she said, what's an unbirthday? They said, well, once a year you get a birthday, but the other 364 days of the year, that's an unbirthday because it's not your birthday. So Alice then says, oh, well, it's my unbirthday too. Now, the reason I point that out is because Alice, when she came to the tea party, she clearly heard them singing. But she also saw the cake that they were holding. They had fireworks or whatever, and they were singing and having a good time. So she didn't listen to what they said. She only looked at what she saw in front of her. So they looked like they were celebrating a birthday because they had a cake and they were singing and they were having a good time. So she didn't bother to listen to what they were actually saying. Isn't that what a lot of Black people do? Don't a lot of Black people just look at things and just see the visuals of it, and they don't really listen to what's being said because they're too distracted by what's going on around them? Don't I always tell you that Black people, we need to stop being distracted? Black people are so easily distracted, just like Alice. She was distracted by what she saw, so she didn't pay attention to what she was hearing. They were clearly saying, Merry Unbirthday to you. But she's looking at the cake and the scenery and everybody laughing and singing, and she totally missed that. Another thing is when Alice was talking to them, and the Dormouse went to tell her a story. Now, as the Dormouse was telling Alice this story, Alice starts interrupting numerous times to ask questions. So the Dormouse got annoyed, right? And then she continued to ask questions. The Dormouse got so annoyed and felt insulted because she kept asking questions. Who does that? Who does that right now? Aren't there people right now that get insulted when we ask them questions? Aren't there some people who get so annoyed? Dr. Fauci. Remember when he was before Congress and Rand Paul was asking him questions about gain of function research, and Dr. Fauci got so mad. He didn't want to be asked questions. You don't challenge me. I said what it is, and that's all that it is. It's the way he came off, right? You see, some people don't like you asking questions when your questions force them or push them into a corner where they have to further explain what they are doing or saying, right? And so the dormouse got upset because Alice continued asking questions. Well, then pretty soon the Mad Hatter also got upset that Alice was asking all these questions, and then he insulted Alice and she stormed off. Isn't that what's going on right now? You see, when some of us start asking questions about venom, there are some people who get mad. Like, why are you asking questions? Follow the science. We've already told you what it does, right? And even though you may have followed the science and you may have listened to the gurus and all of that, you may still have questions. My thing is, why do people get mad when you're just asking questions? Isn't it important to ask questions about things to which you don't know? Isn't it important for someone to tell you information that which you seek, especially as it pertains to your health? Why would anyone get hostile or upset or insulted because you're simply asking questions? Well, I'm so glad you asked. You see, the reason the Dormouse and the Mad Hatter got upset with Alice because she was asking all these questions is because it was distracting them and not allowing them to paint the narrative of the story that the Dormouse was telling. Because when you start asking questions, and pay attention, Kamala Harris does the same thing. When you ask Kamala serious questions, what does she do? She just distracts. She gaslights, right? She'll do something to distract you. She'll say something stupid, tell some stupid story, and start cackling like a hyena. That's because she doesn't want to answer these questions. And that's what people do. And there was one part when Alice was at the tea party, and they were asking her a question, or she was asking them a question. And actually, they asked her a question, and when she tried to answer it, they didn't even allow her to answer. The rabbit said, the March hare says, I have an idea. Let's just change the subject. Isn't that what Dr. Fauci does? Isn't that what Kabami Harris does? Doesn't she often change the subject? That's what people do when they don't want to answer your questions. They'll dismiss you. They'll change the subject. They'll distract you. They'll gaslight. They'll crack jokes. They'll show you that they're annoyed. So a lot of the things from Alice in Wonderland are just like some of the things that are going on right here. Now, more importantly, this is my favorite part. So in Alice in Wonderland, remember the queen. The queen had the big, huge head, right? They made it a point to emphasize the queen's head. Do you know why they emphasize the queen's head in the story? Do you remember that the soldiers for the queen, they were cards. They were all cards from like a deck of cards, right? What do you do with cards? What happens with cards? Cards get played, right? Cards get played. People right here and right now are just like the cards that the queen was in control of. You see, because these people, they're not cards, but they're the sheeple. The sheeple and the cards are the same because they both get played. All right? And another thing that the queen would always do is if anyone said or did something she didn't like, she would say, off with his head. That's the first thing she would say, off with his head. You know why she would say that? You remember when she told the cards to plant roses, and they planted the roses, and the roses came out white. And they told Alice they were painting the roses red. And Alice said, what are you doing? They said, we're painting the roses red. And you see, that was a good idea to them because the queen wanted them to plant red roses. They mistakenly planted white roses. And so to fix the problem, they simply thought, we'll just paint the roses red and that'll fix the problem. The queen comes out and she sees that they're painting the roses red. And she says, who told you to paint the roses red? And when they told her who said to do it, she said, off with his head. Now, why do you think she wanted to kill him just for suggesting they paint the roses red? Well, I'm glad you asked. You see, the reason the queen kept saying that is because anytime someone in the kingdom didn't do what she said to do, or anytime someone thought independently, thought for themselves and came up with their own ideas, she wanted them dead, off with his head. Why? Because you don't need to think for yourself. I think for you. I tell you what to think. That's how the queen was in Alice in Wonderland. And isn't that how it is in America? Isn't that how our government is? Isn't it that they want to tell us how to think? the lamestream propagandist machine media, like I always say, they want to dictate the narratives. They want to tell us when to be happy, when to be sad, when to be angry, when to be glad, when to be fearful. Don't they do that? They fearmonger. They want to induce and incite fear sometimes, right? Where they want you to be angry about something. They'll let you know when to be angry. Remember, I said so many Black people fell for the banana in the tailpipe and got angry about R. Kelly after they put him all over the lamestream media, and then they made that documentary Surviving R. Kelly. Now, we've known for decades that R. Kelly was a whole freak. Nobody was mad then. Nobody was trying to cancel him. Nobody stopped buying his music. Nobody stopped going to his concerts. It was only when they, the powers that shouldn't be, decided it's time for us to cancel R. Kelly. And they proceeded to put out all types of propaganda. They started to show R. Kelly all of the time. And of course, R. Kelly did the things that he was accused of, as far as I'm concerned. But my point is this. They really did that at that particular time, in my opinion, to detract or distract from what Harvey Weinstein was being accused of at around the same time, to make a Black man the face of it. And many Black people fell for the okie doke. Okay? And so they absolutely paint narratives. They don't want you to think independently. They don't want you to think for yourself. You see, they don't really think that we are capable of knowing what's best for us. That's why the government likes to tell us what to do. That's why President Biden thinks that he should tell us about to have mandates. So he thinks that he has to mandate people to do things, that you don't get to make your own choices and decisions. That's what you don't get to do, because you don't know what's best. And if you think you know what's best, then I'll show you off with your head. Isn't that what it's like? Because now they're not literally saying off with your head, but what they're doing is shaming the people who are against the venom. They're shaming you and blaming you. So it's really off with your head. Don't think for yourself. We know what's best. Listen to what we say, just like the Queen. No independent thinkers. There's no need for free thinkers. That's why you're censored on social media for certain things that you say that are absolutely, in some cases, true. But they're said to be disinformation because it's not the information that some people want put out. And so it's off with your head. Well, you don't want to say what we tell you to say? Oh, you want to say something that you think is the truth? Oh, you want to tell your own narrative? Oh, so you're thinking for yourself now? Well, we'll just ban you. Oh, we'll just shut down your channel. Oh, we'll just kick you off of all social media platforms. Because you can't be a free thinker. There is no more freedom of speech. There's no such thing. You think and say what we tell you to do, or you'll be sorry. It'll be off with your head. Right? So that's how that goes. Now, TJ says, you're right, Queen. Thank you, beloved. B. Silla says, exactly. So I took some notes because I don't want to forget anything. This is another thing, too. So like I told you in the beginning of the movie, as Alice sat in the tree, not paying attention to the story that was being read or the information she was being given. And she said, in her world, everything would be nonsense. But by the end of the movie, if you remember, at the end of the movie, Alice was leaving Wonderland and she said, no, enough nonsense. Enough nonsense, Alice, really? But Alice, you asked for nonsense. You asked for this nonsense. You said in your world, everything would be nonsense. But then when they gave her what she asked for, she didn't want nonsense. The nonsense was too much. Now she decided that she wanted reality. The same thing with Neo in the Matrix. At first, he didn't want to face reality. But then when he was given the choice to choose between truth and just keeping the same mundane life that he had been living, he decided to take the truth. Okay? Also, a similarity from the movies is the fact that they offered Neo the red pill or the blue pill, and Alice was offered the cake and the potion. And remember, she grew to like 10 feet tall, right, when she took the cake. And then when she drank the potion, she shrank to like 3 inches. So there was symbolisms with that as well. Also, Morpheus was the one guiding Neo in the Matrix and giving him insight and filling him in, and giving him guidance. But Morpheus was akin to the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland, who was always guiding her and giving her information. If you also remember, there was a part in Alice in Wonderland when I believe it's when she met the Cheshire Cat, and she said, which way do I go? And he said, well, that depends on where you're trying to get. And she said, it doesn't matter. He said, well, then it doesn't matter which way you go. Right? That's the thing. She had no guidance. She didn't know which way she wanted to go because she didn't know where she wanted to go. And if you don't know where you're going, how do you know how to get there? And a lot of Black people don't know where they want to go in life. And so they don't know how to get there. Some of our people are out here lost in the sauce, right? Some of our people are out here confused, and you have some of our teenagers, or you have some Black people just out here aimlessly, getting into all kinds of mischief and getting into trouble or whatever. They're products of their environments. And nobody ever bothers to ask them, well, what do you want to do in life? What do you want to become when you get older? A lot of people don't have those talks with their children. And some people allow the streets to raise their children. And there's not people out there in the streets very often asking them, what do you want to be when you grow up, son? What do you want to do with your life? And if these children have no direction because they don't know where they want to go and they don't know what they want to do, then they'll just be lost in Wonderland, like Alice. They'll think that standing on the corner selling drugs or shooting craps, they'll think that's just fine. Aimlessly wandering along, not accumulating anything for themselves, not doing anything significant, but in fact finding themselves getting into trouble, things always going wrong for them or whatever, because they have no guidance. And you need guidance. If your parents don't give you guidance, right, where will you get it from? Who will you turn to? The parents are supposed to be the first teachers. But sadly, these days, some parents, and this is not just Black people, I'm just specifically talking to Black people because you are my people. But at the end of the day, because clearly we see from these other nefarious stories that I've reported on even today, that it's not just Black folk out here with children getting into all types of mischief, right? But what I'm saying is, when you don't instill certain values and morals and ethics in your children, and you just let them go out there and be in the streets and let the streets raise them, this is when you get misguided youth. And they're lost like Alice. And when people talk to them and ask them who they are, remember, when the Cheshire Cat asked Alice, who are you? It was the Cheshire Cat or the caterpillar. I can't recall. But one of them kept asking her when she met them, who are you? She said, I really don't know. I've been confused since this morning. Who are you? Well, I'm trying to find out. That's the way some of our youth are. They don't know who they are. And that's also the way some of our adult Black people are. They don't know who they are, right? They don't know the history, the true history of their own people. They don't know the true history of their lineage or any of those things. They don't know that we are the natives, that we're indigenous to every place on this earth, that we were here first and that we'll be here last. They don't know that we're the Hebrews. A lot of Black people don't know this. Right? And so they don't know who they are. And if you don't know who you are, then you don't know what you are capable of, because you don't know the power of the melanin within. That's what you don't know, right? So with that all being said, these two stories, both Alice in Wonderland and The Matrix, are very beneficial. They both have gems. And if you just look at something, because many of you may never have thought of any of these things or noticed any of these things that I've just told you, but that's because you're looking at these things with your pair of eyes. And I always tell you that the pair of eyes will deceive you, right? If thy eye be single, then thy body is full of light. And the single eye is the third eye, which I call the first eye. And when you look with the first eye, you can see clearly what is before you. And you will also have discernment. Okay? So with that all being said, also let's talk about this song. Does anyone other than myself, and let me just tell y'all something, honey, because I listen to all genres of music. Honey, I like hip hop, rap, whatever you want to call it. I like R&B. I like classical music. I like rock. I like country. I like all different types of music. Hey, I was raised in Louisville, Kentucky, right? So yes, I do actually like country music, but at the end of the day, I like all types of music. So does anyone in the chat know who Jefferson Starship is? Grace Slick. Jefferson Starship or Grace Slick? Anyone know who that is? Dervis says yes. Okay, Dervis is a singer, so Dervis knows. Absolutely. All right. JP says yes, Queen. Real talk. Thank you, beloved. Okay, so here's the thing. The song that Grace Slick wrote for Jefferson Starship called White Rabbits. Now, you may have heard that song on The Matrix. Call Alice, right? When I was younger, that's what I thought the song was called. I thought it was called Alice. And I had no idea it was about Alice in Wonderland when I was a kid. But that song is about Alice in Wonderland. And when she wrote that song, White Rabbits, she was referencing some of the things from the movie. But at the same time, this, it was basically metaphorically talking about certain things that was going on, right? So she talked about the white rabbit, or the song was called White Rabbit. And then she said, call Alice when she's 10 feet tall. Now, you remember Alice grew when she ate the cake. And then, like I said, she shrank when she took the potion. And then there was another part of the song where she says, remember what the dormouse said. And then she said, feed your head. Now, what do you think she meant in the song when she said, feed your head? Remember what the dormouse said. Feed your head. Do you all remember that? Do you all remember or know why she said feed your head? What do you think she meant when she said that? Anyone have a clue? Anyone want to take a guess? Hey, Khalid. Knowledge. There you go. There you go, Pinky T and the God in me. Yes, knowledge. Beryl says think. Exactly. When she said feed your head, she was talking about absorb knowledge. Food for thoughts. Feed your head. That's give yourself food for thoughts. To think, right? To think and to obtain and achieve knowledge. That's what she said. And when she said, remember what the dormouse said, if you remember the dormouse, when he was telling Alice the story, he told a story about these two girls. And I think he said they lived in a hole or something and they were eating treacle. And Alice said they couldn't have eaten that. If they'd eaten that, they'd have been very ill. And he said, oh, they were. He said, oh, they were. Now, that's like a lot of the things that we eat, all these foods with GMO and all of those things. And if the things that were in the food, if they took those things out of the food and set it on a table before you, like the chemicals and all that stuff that's clearly in a lot of this food, if they took the chemicals out of the food and set it on the table in front of you, and then they said to someone, well, this is what they've been eating. And that person would say, well, they can't eat that. Those are chemicals. They'd be very ill if they ate that. And they said, well, they are. That's just like what he told the dormouse told Alice. Yeah, they were ill. Another thing was the Cheshire Cat. He told Alice, he said the Hatter, he told her to go see the Hatter because she was looking for the white rabbit. And Alice said, he's mad. And he said, yes. He said, but the dormouse or someone else, he said, the March Hare, he said they were mad too. And he said, I mean, I'm a little off myself. Everyone is mad. Now, when you think about it, doesn't it seem like when you listen to the lamestream media, when you listen to the crazy things that people say, some of the things that happen, and you can't believe that people did these things, you know, like the people kidnapping the UPS driver and stealing packages, right? All these crazy things that happen and occur. And I ask you all, you know, often when I'm doing these stories, like, what is wrong with people? Are people going crazy? Well, people are mad, just like they were in Alice in Wonderland. People are literally mad. They're not thinking straight. You know why they're not thinking straight? I'm glad you asked, because they're not feeding their heads. They're not giving themselves food for thoughts, right? So anyway, with that all being said, Now I want to talk about how the CIA used this. How the CIA used Alice in Wonderland, the movie, during interrogations and things of that nature. Okay? So, and here's another thing too. When Alice was talking to the Dormouse, the March Hare, and the Mad Hatter, they were having a senseless, stupid discussion. And here's the thing. This is another thing too. They were having this senseless and stupid discussion, right? And that's often what some of us do. We have senseless, stupid discussions that don't mean anything. Some of it's just gossip. You know, some of it's just being all in somebody else's business. It's all senseless and stupid. It's not going to do anything to help us, our situation, or help us to get us where we're trying to go. But some of us, we waste too much time on these stupid, right? These stupid, silly, senseless discussions rather than talking about something beneficial. See, Alice was sitting there talking to the Mad Hatter, the March Hare, and the Dormouse, having a silly, dumb discussion about nothing, but she didn't want to listen to the lady who was reading her and trying to give her knowledge. She couldn't pay attention to that because she said there was no pictures to look at. It's very hard to focus and pay attention to a book that has no pictures. That's what Alice said. So she didn't have time for that. But she had time for nonsensical discussions with the Mad Hatter, the Dormouse, and the Hare. Isn't that what a lot of Black people do? They have time to go to the hair salon and get their hair done and sit under the dryer and laugh and talk and gossip about foolishness, what the celebrities are doing, who's sleeping with who, who's divorcing who's taking whose money, who didn't pay their baby daddy, who has this many kids like Future and all of this stuff. They have so much time for celebrity gossip, foolish, senseless, nonsensical things that mean nothing to their lives, won't affect their lives one way or another. Clearly just distractions. And don't get me wrong, it's okay to listen to that stuff sometimes. But if you find yourself listening to that a bulk of the time, as opposed to trying to obtain knowledge and learn something and retain information that can help you along the way, or something you could share with someone else to enrich their lives, then what are you doing? What are you doing? You're like Alice, lost in Wonderland, right? Another thing is this. I almost forgot this part. So if you remember, the Dormouse in the story was always dozing off, was always tired and sleepy, either daydreaming or dozing off or whatever, right? And so the Dormouse dozing off and always being tired and sleepy and half awake, it's just like some of you. Some Black people are what I call diet woke. They're not really woke. They think they're woke. If you're Black and you say that you're woke, but you still celebrate nefarious holidays, right? If you still celebrate Christmas, you're diet woke. And some of you know Christmas and all these other holidays are just ways to generate money and revenue and wealth for those who continuously try to oppress us. But you do it anyway because you're caught up in tradition. You're just so used to doing it. You make excuses and say it's for the kids. And then some other Black people try to shame you into doing it and say that, oh, you just want to be so pro-Black. You don't want to you don't want to celebrate Christmas or whatever. Well, people say things like that because they want to sell you stuff for Christmas. When people want to sell you stuff for the holidays, they're not going to tell you not to celebrate holidays. They want you to celebrate holidays because they too, like the oppressor, are trying to gain money and revenue from you during the holiday season. So though they may know that the holidays are clearly nefarious, they're not going to tell you that. Because I want you to come shop with me for Christmas. Why would I tell you that Christmas really ain't about a savior named Jesus? Why would I tell you the real meaning and truth of Christmas? And the reason they hang ornaments on the trees are because back in the day, the pagans would kill children, sacrifice them to their God, and then chop off their heads and hang them on trees. And that's when you got the whole process of hanging ornaments on trees. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to try to shame you and make you feel bad because you don't want to celebrate Christmas. But they want you to celebrate it because they got something to sell you, just like the big corporations, right? So are they really trying to wake you up, or are you better served to them if you're still asleep? Some people don't want to wake you up. They want to keep you asleep at the wheel. They want you to keep believing in white Jesus. Right? They want you to keep believing in white Jesus, and they'll quote white Jesus to you. That's what they'll do. They want to keep you stuck on stupid. They want to keep you diet woke. They don't want you to fully wake up. They want you to be like the dormouse, only half awake and daydreaming and dozing off. Another thing about the dormouse is in one scene, they had the dormouse tied to a dissection table. And he just kept falling asleep. You know why he kept falling asleep? Because he was taking the Hatter's medicine. Remember, the Hatter was giving the dormouse that medicine. That's why he kept falling asleep. Some people give you medicine to keep you falling asleep. And I don't mean like a prescription, but they give you medicine of lies and half-truths, right? Or they bend and stretch the truth. Some people say things that sound good, that make you think that they're pro-black and that they're down for black people, right? But at the end of the day, they only say enough to make you think that they're down with you and really trying to actually help you when all they're really doing is helping themselves. Like the Hatter. They keep giving you the medicine, right? And so they keep you asleep at the wheel. Not fully waking you up. They want you to be the sheeple. You see, in Alice in Wonderland, the queen had a whole army of cards, and she played those cards. But in reality, in our reality, we have some people who act as the queen, right? And some of them call themselves queen, and they act as the queen, but they treat you as the sheeple. And they don't want the sheeple to awaken from the slumber because they cannot lead, they cannot fool, they cannot trick, they cannot con, and they cannot scam people who are fully awakened. But they can do all of those things to people who are only diet woke, people who are, so to speak, asleep at the wheel. That's what they can do. All right? So with that all being said, let's talk about how the CIA used these tactics, Alice in Wonderland technique, during their interrogations. Let's talk about it. Likes up, everyone, please. Like and share, subscribe to the channel. We just get started, honey. Y'all gonna get a whole lot more of these things coming. Now listen, Alice in the Wonderland tactic. It's time to wake up, people. It's time to wake up. Playtime is over. The games need to stop right now. All right? Stop being deceived. Stop being distracted. Stop allowing people to gaslight you. And wake up and rise into your true selves. Now listen to this. It's also known as the confusion technique. So let's talk about how they use this. I'm not going to read all of this. I'm going to skip down. Okay, so the confusion technique is designed not only to obliterate the familiar, but to replace it with the weird and nonsensical, normalizing lunatic behavior and states of madness portrayed as sane. So they'll show you something crazy and make it seem like, oh, this is just normal, right? Y'all see how we're living in this reality right now? And some people keep saying, well, if we just do this, things will go back to normal. No, the normal that we once knew is over and done with. That's a wrap. And it's not coming back, beloveds. It's not coming back. You see, now we live in this weird, nonsensical reality. Why is it nonsensical? Well, you know, in a nonsensical reality, you don't know if up is down or down is up, in is out, right is left, or left is right. And why don't you know these things? Well, because some people, they tell you things, they mix lies with truth. And what does that do? Because these people are devils who do this, right? They mix the lies with the truth to confuse you. And that's the same thing the devil does. So some people are makers and creators of chaos, right? Now listen to this. Although this method can be employed by a single interrogator, it is better adapted to use by 2 or 3 or more. Now, when the subject enters the room, this is what happens when the CIA uses this technique. When the first interrogator comes into the room, they ask a double talk question, one which comes out and seems to be straightforward, but is essentially nonsensical. Now, whether the interrogatee tries to answer or not, the interrogator follows up, interrupting any attempted response with a wholly unrelated and equally illogical query. That's what happened to Alice at the tea party. Remember when Alice was asking the questions and they got annoyed because she kept interrupting, and then so they insulted her until she got mad and walked away. Also, when she came there, she was trying to answer questions they were asking, but before she could ever answer, they'd say things like, "Do you want some more tea?" And she'd say, "Well, I never got any tea to begin with, so I definitely can't get more," right? And they said, "You can get more. You can get more of what you don't have, but you can never get less of what you don't have." And then she said, "Oh, well, I wasn't thinking." And they said, "Well, if you don't think, then you shouldn't speak." That's what they told her. If you don't think, then you shouldn't speak. You see how they were dropping gems in there that you probably didn't even pay attention to? And that's very true. If you don't think, then you shouldn't speak. Because see, what some people foolishly do is they speak without thinking. And they sound real foolish, right? So you should always think before you speak. So sometimes two or more questions are asked simultaneously. Pitch, tone, and volume of the interrogator's voices are unrelated to the import of the questions. Now, no pattern of questions and answers is permitted to develop, nor do the questions themselves relate logically to each other. In this strange atmosphere, the subject finds that the pattern of speech and thoughts, which he has learned to consider normal, may have been replaced by an eerie meaninglessness. Now, the interrogatee may start laughing or simply try to refuse to take the situation seriously. But as the process continues day after day, if necessary, the subject begins to try to make sense of the situation, which becomes mentally intolerable. Now he is likely to make significant admissions or even to pour out his story, just to stop the flow of babble which assails him. This technique may be especially effective with the orderly, obstinate type. So here's the thing. Basically what they're saying is if the CIA would bring people in, right? And then they want to question them. They want to find out what they know. They're trying to get them to spill the beans. Well, they have 2 or 3 people come in the room and they start asking them, just pummeling them with questions, question after question. Before they can answer one question, they ask them a second. Before they can answer the second, they ask them a third. And then before they can answer that, they change the subject. And then it starts to sound crazy. And the person's like in a tailspin, like, what is going on here? You asking me all these questions. I can't answer them. You won't even let me answer. You won't even give me a chance. And they keep doing this for days and hours, right? Until finally, what was funny in the beginning, because some people find this humorous at first, because it's like a comedy skit, like a joke, like you can't be serious. Why are all 3 of you asking me all of these foolish questions that have nothing to do with why I'm here, and then you don't even allow me to answer them before you ask another? That's all mind games. That's psychology. So they're playing mind games to confuse the person. And then after hours of dealing with this, maybe a couple of days, the person becomes mentally drained. And at this point, they just want it to stop. It's exhausting. It's draining them. It's lowering their vibrational frequency. So now they'd rather just go ahead and tell them whatever they want to know. So this can all just end. So that's how that works. It's psychological warfare, people. And guess what? We're in it. When I told you we're in spiritual warfare, we absolutely are. But we're also in psychological warfare. They're playing mind games with you. Do you all remember that I told you one day, I said sometimes Dr. Fauci says things, he uses these fancy words. And when he's talking to people, he uses these fancy words sometimes. And I'm sure that sometimes the people he's talking to may not know exactly what some of the words mean, right? Or some of the people who are listening may not know what some of the words mean. And if you remember, I said to you a couple of months ago when I was talking about the way he does that, see, that's his gaslighting tactic. When someone asks him a question he really doesn't want to entertain, he starts talking in circles sometimes, or he starts using these words that nobody hardly uses, and then so to throw people off, right? And I told you all one day, I said, is he confused? Or maybe he's trying to confuse us? Because that's what people do. It's a tactic of confusion. Sometimes people purposely confuse you to throw you off track. And that's a good technique because it works. It works especially on people who don't use critical thinking skills and who don't exercise common sense. So now, Alice in Wonderland Alice in Wonderland logic. Okay, now the logic in Alice in Wonderland was to avoid discussions of any of the issues by reasoning backwards or with an apparent deductive logic, which refrains from giving out any actual material facts. That's what the CIA would do when they're interrogating these people. The mind control aspect of it. Now, a slightly offbeat and idiosyncratic but gentle introduction to an unapproved topic or subject, which for most 3D people, most of the time is safely regulated to the realm of fictional horror, ridiculous conspiracy theories, or a similar mental pigeonhole, so that life can proceed according to their belief systems, or resume as normal. Isn't that what's going on right now? When I just told you that people say, oh, well, if we just do this, everything will go back to normal. That's what they want, because normal is comfortable for some people. Some people don't want to change. They don't want anything around them to change, but everything must change. Nothing always stays the same. And with that all being said, the new normal is now over. And ridiculous conspiracy theories, right? Or a similar mental pigeonhole, so that life can proceed according to their belief systems or resume as normal. Belief systems. People have many different belief systems, right? People have many different belief systems. And some things that people say may sound crazy to some people. And then they say, oh, that's not true. That can't be true. That sounds far-fetched. That sounds like a conspiracy theory. But what some people don't seem to realize is because they don't feed their heads. They don't give themselves food for thought. They don't really think outside of the box, right? So some things that they don't know about or understand and haven't bothered to read or research or study at all, that sounds like conspiracy theories to them. What they often don't realize is that truth is very often stranger than fiction. And, and also another book or another story that the CIA also used was The Wizard of Oz. And The Wizard of Oz was also similar to Alice in Wonderland, as far as I'm concerned. Had a lot of similarities also. Now listen to this. They say in the caucus race, for instance, the race depicts the absurdity of democracy. Yet Alice's critical attitude, a product of her class education, is also satirized in the story. The object of the race is to have everyone dry off, so it doesn't matter who wins or loses. And clearly the outcome of the race is irrelevant. Now, to think otherwise, as Alice does, is absurd. The point of the running about is to dry off, when incidentally makes it equally absurd to call moving about for the purpose of a race. Hold on, I left out something. Hold on, I skipped over something. Okay, let me go back. Okay, now, the structure of a dream does not lend itself to a resolution. A dream simply is a very different kind of experience. In this sense, Alice does not really evolve into a higher understanding of her adventure. She has the memory of Wonderland, but she brings nothing real from Wonderland when she wakes up from the dream, right? She only has her memory of it. She didn't bring back anything significant from it, nothing real. The only thing she has are her memories. Now, this is a powerful testament to the influence of her domestication. In Alice's case, good social breeding is more important than her natural disposition. But if Alice leaves Wonderland without acquiring any lasting truth or truly worthwhile knowledge, neither can she give any wisdom to the creatures whom she has met there. Nature, in each case, sets limits to the ability to assimilate experiences. And so the thing is, when Alice was in Wonderland, she was being given knowledge by these little animals, these creatures. You remember the caterpillar. The caterpillar was giving her knowledge. So was the Cheshire Cats, right? And even the Mad Hatter. They were all giving her knowledge. But unless you were really paying attention, you wouldn't realize that. And Alice just thought that everything seemed so nonsensical, and she said enough of the nonsense. But she didn't realize they were giving her information that could help. And that's often how people, don't realize that someone's giving them pertinent information. So then it goes on to say, when Alice asks the Cheshire Cat which way to go, he replies that she should first know where she's going. Now, the frog footman tells her not to knock on the door inside the Duchess's house. He can only open the door when he is inside. And some of the nonsense in Wonderland is merely satire, right? Such as the mock turtle's education. But the nature of the nonsense is much like chance, and the rules to decipher it is logical meaning. To decipher it into logical meaning or sense patterns work against the principal intent of the author's purpose. That is, he wanted his nonsense to be random, senseless, unpredictable, and without rules. In other words, nature and nurture. That's what the author did when he was writing this. Now, Wonderland offers a peculiar view of nature. For one thing, all of the animals have obviously been educated because they were, like I said, dropping gems, and you had to be looking with your third eye to catch them. Now, there is literally not a stupid one in the bunch. All of the animals had sense. So, in general, the basic condition common to all of the creatures is not ignorance, but madness, for which there seems to be no appropriate remedy. Because remember, the Cheshire Cat said, well, I guess we're all mad, right? And remember, they always say there's a thin line between genius and insanity. Now, a Victorian reader must have wondered how the animals were trained. After all, the assumptions that Alice makes all the rest of her training. On this point, however, the reader is only left to speculate. So, with that all being said, let me tell you something. This story, like I said, it was entertaining when you were kids. And of course, we didn't catch those things that were being dropped as children. But if you go back and watch it as an adult, I'm sure now, especially since we discussed it, then you can see how they were given information. When they said, well, if you don't think, then you shouldn't speak. And that's true. Because some people may think you're a fool. Don't open your mouth up and then prove them right. Right? And some people speak without thinking. And that's what Alice was doing. Okay? And she also couldn't make up her mind. She didn't know who she was. She wasn't sure about herself. She wasn't sure about her place in life. Neo was the same way in the Matrix. He had to be guided and led into his destiny by Morpheus. Okay? And like I said, Morpheus in the Matrix was akin to the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland. You also had the Oracle. The Oracle in the Matrix, right? Who was also helping Neo. Now, the Oracle was influenced by the character of the caterpillar in Alice in Wonderland, if you remember that. Because the Oracle was advising Neo, and the caterpillar was giving Alice advice. So, and here's another thing. Both of the characters transformed, right? Remember, the caterpillar turned into a butterfly, and then I think it was Matrix Revolution when the Oracle changed appearance. Okay? Trisha says, how old was Alice? I don't know, beloved. I don't know that they ever said how old Alice was in the story. Okay? Harlem Brown says, my ex-husband is sleepy as elf. He's got money and is comfy. Nothing comes to his front door yet. That's how some people are, beloved. It's so. Hold on. You all are just too much. Like I said numerous of times, this chat is unmatched. Millie, shout out to you for your comment. You're a hot mess. Okay? Okay, Maud Egypt said Alice was 13 years old. Okay, so anyway, with that all being said, listen, I hope you all got something from that. And what I basically want to tell you all is when you're watching something, even if it's a cartoon, right? There can be gems and knowledge and wisdom being dropped. You just have to be able to catch them. That's all. View things with your third eye, which I call the first eye, and start seeing the truth behind things. Start seeing past the allegorical text, right? Start looking past the allegories of stories to see the hidden truth. Because often things are right before your very eyes, but we don't see it because we're looking at it with a pair of eyes. And you know, like I told you before, that's why they say, are my eyes deceiving me? Are you going to believe me or your lying eyes? Right? So make sure you're looking at things with your third eye. With that all being said, I'm going to conclude this broadcast. Pinky T says, thank you, Queen. I love you. And I love you right, Black beloved. Okay, so thank you all for tuning in. Erin says, now I have to go back and watch Alice in Wonderland after so many years. All right, so with that all being said, I hope you all enjoy the rest of this tonight. Thank you all for tuning in once again. Please make sure you like and share this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all. And also, if you watch, thank you, Louise says, great broadcast, Queen. Thank you, beloved. You're welcome, Millie. So listen, you're welcome, King Lejeune. JP says, love you, Queen, always. And I love you right, Black. Coco says, thank you, Queen, for sharing this knowledge with us. This is so informative. Thank you, beloved. Thank you. Thank you, Black women. Stand up, beloved. So listen, Burl says, thanks, Queen, for the jewels. Well, thank you all. You are all just too kind, honey. You know I love my subscribers, right? But so listen, I forgot what I was going to say. I got distracted. But listen, all of you all, please make sure you like and share the video, subscribe to the channel. Oh, this is what I was going to say. If you have not seen the movie Don't Look Up, if you do watch it, make sure you tell me what you thought about it, right? You know, if you got something out of it, whatever, you noticed some subliminals that I maybe didn't mention in my review. Just, you know, your thoughts, whether you liked it or not, okay? So with that all being said, you're welcome, Elisheba. I hope I said that right. Vince I Am said, the Queen of Receipts should be protected, a melanated treasure. Thank you, beloved. All right, so I hope to see you all, right, Black, in the chat tomorrow for your morning wake-up calls. I hope you enjoy the rest of this night. Stay productive. Do something constructive, never destructive, and stay high vibrational. All right, and I hope to talk to you all again soon. Peace.